What's the purpose of sharing my story with you? Put simply, my feeling is that if I'm able to do this, if I'm able to be successful at client development, I'm sure you can as well. So let me share with you my story. When I got out of law school, I had the opportunity to go to NYU to get an LLM in tax. I got accepted. There's just one slight problem, and that is I had a commitment to the Air Force, and the Air Force told me we don't need tax lawyers with LLMs. So I had to put that on hold, and probably it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. So I went into the Air Force in the fall of 1971, and over time I realized that the very best job as an Air Force lawyer was to do government contract litigation. So I purposely sought that job and somehow was able to land it. I'm not quite sure how that happened. So from about 1973 through July of 1976, I litigated government contract cases as a captain in the Air Force. When I got out of the Air Force in 1976, I had plenty of opportunities to go to government contract law firms, to go to government contractors. I had job offers to be an in-house lawyer with several government contractors that did business with the Air Force. Instead, I chose to go back to Roanoke, Virginia, in part due to the fact that as a government contract lawyer in one of those firms that offered me a position, I would be the third person on a three-person case starting out, and I really didn't want to do it that way. I far preferred the opportunity to actually be the litigator. So I went back to Roanoke, Virginia with the idea of becoming the best commercial litigator in Roanoke, Virginia. Once again, there was only one slight problem, and that is there was already a gentleman in Roanoke who held that title. And believe it or not, even today, he still holds the title. So while I was doing commercial litigation, I was thinking about, what other opportunities do I have? How could I use my background in government contract litigation and government contracts generally to be a lawyer in Roanoke, Virginia, where there were no government contractors? I thought about it and realized that a potential area would be highway construction. After all, highway construction is government contracts, and I happen to have gone to college with three people with two different family-owned businesses in that field. So I decided I was going to focus my attention on highway construction. As I've shared with you in another segment, one of the other reasons I thought that would be a good idea was because there were very few lawyers focusing on highway construction. I can remember being on a panel for an American Bar Association annual meeting in 1980, and we had a conference call to discuss the topics for the panel, and the panel was to focus on state and local government contracts as opposed to federal government contracts. While on the conference call, I was asked, what area would I be covering? When I replied that I would focus on highway construction, the moderator of the panel call and the moderator of the panel said to me, no one's interested in highway construction. And I thought to myself, well, that's the perfect reason why I'm interested. If fewer lawyers were interested, then that gave me a bigger opportunity. So back in 1978 is when I started my focus on highway construction. One of the first things I did is I decided I would write a law review article. One of the main reasons I did that is I thought through writing a law review article that would force me to learn what I didn't already know about highway construction legal issues. And sure enough, it actually did help me in that regard. Then I decided that I wanted to start speaking on highway construction, and I started with that ABA annual meeting that I mentioned to you in 1980. I quickly learned that speaking to other lawyers was not the best use of my time, so I started focusing on speaking to contractors. I got the opportunity to speak to the Virginia Road and Transportation Builders Association at their summer meeting in 1981. And through that opportunity, I was asked to speak at the American Road and Transportation Builders Association meeting. Through the American Road and Transportation Builders Association presentation, I was asked to speak at other state chapters, and I was on my way. A couple of years later, I was speaking at a meeting of contractors, and afterwards, the editor of a magazine came up to me and asked me if he could use some of the quotes from my presentation in the next issue of his magazine. I suggested that instead of doing that, how about if I actually wrote a legal column for the magazine? At that point in time, no other construction magazine that I was aware of had a legal column. And so I started writing for Roads and Bridges magazine back in 1983 and continued writing for the next 25 years. So once again, that was an opportunity that I took advantage of to create visibility around the country in my chosen area of highway construction. You know, I'm often asked, how do you make friends your clients? And I think there's only about three main ways. One way is you become the secondary law firm or lawyer, if they already have a law firm, and just take on that role whenever there's a conflict or whenever the other law firm is unable to handle a particular matter, then you are there and ready to help. Through getting that opportunity, you know, your foot in the door, that gives you the chance to help. The second way is finding ways to add value that other lawyers are not adding. Now, I'm going to discuss that in a later segment. So for now, be thinking of ways you can do things that would add value beyond what the current lawyer or law firm is doing. The third way is to become the expert in a narrow part of the legal needs of the client. So if you can picture my situation, you know, I was friends with two brother-in-laws, you know, who had gone to school with me, and one of their fathers was the CEO of the company. The CEO of the company was best friends with another lawyer, I should say, in Roanoke, and they had a relationship. So how was I going to break into that relationship? I was friends with another fellow I had gone to college with whose father ran his company. And once again, his father already had a relationship with a lawyer. How am I going to break into that relationship? Well, the way I did it was to become an expert on the contract issues that highway contractors face. And through that expertise, I was able to get a small part of the legal budget that they were spending on outside lawyers, but it was an important part because it was dealing with all their contract issues. So the third way to break in and to make a friend-client when the friend already has a lawyer is to become the expert on a narrow area that they need. That's what I did. You can do it as well.